We're going to call our Forward Pinellas meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here and joining us. If you would, please rise. Commissioner Welch is going to do our invocation today, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for a new day that we have never seen before, and we rejoice and we're glad in it. We thank you for the duties and responsibilities that you've given this board and our staff and partners in the community to build a better community for generations to come. We pray for those in our nation who are enduring storms, both literally and spiritually. Father, we lift up and uplift our nation during this difficult time, Father. We pray for Commissioner Eggers. Ask that you would continue to bless him and keep him safe on his journey and bring him back safely. And we ask today that you give us wisdom, vision, and understanding as we do our work. We pray these and all things in your magnificent name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that beautiful invocation, Commissioner. Before we begin, we always do quick introductions from our board members, and we'll begin on this side of the dais with Commissioner Bajowski.
Hi, Mayor Bajowski from the City of Dunedin.
David Albritton, Clearwater Council Member.
Susie Sofer, Commissioner of the City of Bel Air Bluffs, representing Bel Air Bluffs, Bel Air, Seminole, Kennett City, South Pasadena, and Seminole.
Michael Smith, Commissioner, City of Largo.
Cookie Kennedy, Mayor of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, representing all the beach communities.
Whit Blanton, Executive Director.
Ken Welch, County Commission.
Karen Seal, County Commission.
Brandy Gabbard, City of St. Pete.
Sandra Bradbury, Mayor of Pinellas Park.
Janet Long, Pinellas County Commissioner, District 1.
Thank you, and I'm Vice Chair Darden Rice from City of St. Petersburg, filling in for Commissioner Eggers today. Our next section is Citizens to be Heard. Do we have anyone with us today who would like to speak on any issue not dealing with anything that's already in a public hearing or on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move right ahead. And you see before us, we have a consent agenda. Do we have any comments or questions, or do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Approval of consent.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next section is our public hearing items. We will conduct the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, public hearing first, followed by the Pinellas Planning Council public hearings. TIP amendments, that's Transportation Improvement Program, requires a roll call vote, and the annual adoption of priorities also requires a roll call vote. At this time, we will begin with the Pinellas Planning Council public hearings.
Let's go ahead with the MPO TIP first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just moved right on ahead.
That's okay. We have Jared Austin who will cover that item for us today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jared Austin, Forward Pinellas. Today I'll be walking through a TIP modification of the FY 18-19 through 22-23 Transportation Improvement Program. So as you all know, Forward Pinellas receives federal and state grant funds through the Florida Department of Transportation. And these funds are on a 2-year Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP cycle. And any funds that were not used in the fiscal year 18 time frame, they come back into fiscal year 20 or are transferred over into fiscal year 20 and must be accounted for in the UPWP. So Forward Pinellas plans for this every year, and it is a part of the UPWP development and planning process. However, those funds also must be reflected in the Transportation Improvement Program as well. So we are looking to adjust today in the FY20 federal highway planning funds from $1,022,963 to $1,614,350, and in the FY20 Federal Highway Surface Transportation Funds from $350,000 to $357,018 dollars. And again, that's not any new money, it's money that was already accounted for in FY18 being transferred over and reflected in the FY20 funds.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Board members?
Madam,
Commissioner Long.
yes, I would like to know if in this plan, but you probably have the answer to this, is part of what's in this plan reflected in the countywide plan that you and Brad and Barry Burton have been working on for our workshop on the 18th?
No, this is, these are dollars that are part of our regular planning program. They include development of the long-range transportation plan and other routine activities of the MPO. So these are funding sources that are used for the operation of the agency and to undertake planning activities such as corridor studies and things like that.
Okay, so the corridors that are in the current plan for us to discuss on the 18th are not in here?
Not yet. That would be something if the board moves forward on that initiative.
This
that-
board or the county?
The Board of
commission?
County Commissioners, for instance, then conceivably we would amend or develop a new unified planning work program to address any planning activities we would need to undertake for those.
Okay,
That's, that's a decision away.
okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I understood what was
Sure.
going on right now.
That's right.
Thank you.
This is really more of a fiscal year accounting.
I got it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, I have one question just for clarification purposes. We're referring to SFY 18 and moving it into SFY 20. Should it not be 19 moving into 20?
No, you've got it right. I'll let Jared try and answer that one for you, and then I can jump in if need be.
Yeah, so the funds, again, are allocated on a 2-year cycle. So they were brought in 2018, and are now being moved over into 2020. Yeah.
Because I know we have to, as city council people pass when we haven't expended funds from one year to the next, and this one's, I just wanted to make sure.
It's a weird aspect of the federal government, but if we didn't do this, we would lose those funds. So this gives us the ability to get them in 20,
Very good.
get them back.
Okay. Do I, oh, thank you. Do you have a comment from,
Maybe this relates to something else.
oh, okay, thank you very much.
Take this guy.
Okay, so any other board comments? Do I hear a motion to approve this modification to the Transportation Improvement Program?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion and a second. I'll let you call that. Motion to approve from Commissioner Long, and the second, Mayor Bradbury.
Actually, I was the second, and I think Commissioner Seal might have made the motion, or
No,
Brandy.
it was
Somebody
Welch.
over
It was Welch.
We defer to you, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
You make the call.
You made the motion.
Pick one.
Commissioner Welch made the motion. And the second from Commissioner Long. And roll call, please. Oh, this isn't a roll call? Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Jared's not going anywhere, so he's got the next couple items.
Okay, so our next item is B1, the sub-threshold countywide plan map amendment.
Yes. So again, yes, it's sub-threshold countywide plan map amendment CW 1911 submitted by the City of Clearwater. So the City of Clearwater is seeking to amend the designation of a property from retail and services to activity center. And the purpose of this amendment is to allow for the incorporation of a currently vacant property into the Clearwater Activity Center so that it may be redeveloped in the future. The location is at the southwest corner of US Highway 19 North and Nursery Road. The area size is roughly 0.52 acres and the existing uses are vacant. And the surrounding uses are commercial, activity center, residential, and multimodal corridor. So this is just north of the subject, facing north of the subject property from within the property itself. This is facing just east of the subject property. This is facing south of the subject property,
Still McDonald's.
and this is to the west of the subject property. So again, the current category is retail and services. And just a little background about this information, or about this parcel in particular. This parcel was voluntarily annexed into the city of Clearwater by the owner, who also owns the L-shaped parcel adjacent to it. And they are looking to redevelop the entirety of that, those two parcels. Hence the proposed change to Activity Center, incorporation into the Clearwater Activity Center. So in conclusion, we found that the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the activity center category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in section 6531 of the countywide rules.
Thank you. And at this time, do we take comments from the applicant, local government?
Only
Anyone from Clearwater?
if need be.
Only if need be? Okay. And this was unanimous from the PAC committee?
Right, so we don't have any PAC representation.
Any comments from the public? Okay. Board members?
Motion to,
Yes.
motion to approve.
I think you have a question over here.
There's no question. I will not be able to vote on this one. My employer is the one that brought this to the city of Clearwater for annexation.
Okay, thank you.
Did the city have any citizen comments that came out?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve this amendment. And roll call, please.
No, no roll call.
These are, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. And Jared, that's right, you're not going anywhere. Item B2, 5B2, case CW 19-12 for the city of St. Petersburg.
Right. Yes, sub-threshold countywide plan map amendment, CW 1912, submitted by City of St. Pete, sorry. So the City of St. Petersburg is seeking to amend a property from public, semi-public, and residential low-medium to public, semi-public, and residential low-medium. And the purpose of this amendment is to allow for single-family residential development, as well as bring an associated church property into consistency with local land use regulations. So the location is at 111 Pinellas Way North, and the area size is roughly 1.63 acres. Existing uses are a place of worship, and the surrounding uses are residential and institutional. So this is just south of the subject property. You can see the church facility there. This is east of the subject property. And then just as some of the residential to the west of the subject properties. So here you can see the current land use category, and I'll just direct your attention first to the northernmost parcels labeled as public, semi-public. That property is currently owned by the church, and they're seeking to relinquish that for the purpose of single-family residential redevelopment. Just as clarification, under our countywide public, semi-public category, we do allow for residential development. However, at a local level, the institutional category that falls under this public, semi-public category does not allow for residential redevelopment. And then to the southwesternmost parcel, labeled as residential low-medium, that is actually, that parcel is actually already a part of the church facility. And is just looking to be brought into consistency with the surrounding public, semi-public category and local institutional category. And hence that change is reflected here on this map. So in conclusion, we believe that the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the residential low, medium, and public, semi-public category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in section 6531 of the countywide rules.
Okay, thank you. We do have our applicant, local government here, represented by Derek Kilborn for the City of St. Pete. He does not have a presentation, but he's here to answer any questions. Do we have any questions from the public on this item? Seeing none, any board member comments? Commissioner Smith?
To the city, did anybody comment on this citizen? Okay, thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have move approval from Commissioner Long, and it was seconded by Commissioner Kennedy. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Our next item is 5B3. Case CW 19-13 for the City of Tarpon Springs.
Yes. So this one is a regular countywide plan map amendment for the City of Tarpon Springs. And the City of Tarpon Springs is seeking to amend the designation of a property from retail and services to industrial. And the purpose of this amendment is to allow for the development, of an automobile repair facility on a currently vacant property. So the location is at 427 feet north of Riverwatch Boulevard on the east side of US 19 North. The area size is roughly 2.28 acres, and the existing uses are currently vacant. The surrounding uses is commercial, residential, and preservation. So this is just north of the subject property from within the property itself. This is just facing east of the subject property. This is the south end of subject property. And then this is just west of the subject property. So again, here you can see the current retail and services category. Originally, this property was slated for a commercial redevelopment around 2007. However, the recession hit and the facility has since remained, or the parcel has since remained vacant. And again, it's looking to be developed into a vehicle repair facility, which is better suited by the industrial land use category, rather. As part of in looking at these cases, we take into consideration a series of relevant countywide considerations. One of those that we look at is the Coastal High Hazard Area, or CHHA, of which this parcel does fall within the current CHHA. However, the proposed land use change would not actually increase any residential density on the property, and the city has also indicated to us that the proposed development is actually located on an existing property that was already previously prepared for a development, has a master drainage system in place, and is completely cleared of vegetation. In addition to CHHA, we also look at level of service. And the proposed amendment is located off of US Highway 19 North, which is a level of service F roadway. However, the proposed land use change from retail and services to industrial would actually result in approximately 217 less trips per day per acre compared to the previous retail and services category and associated commercial development. And here's just an overview of the entirety of those countywide considerations. And in conclusion, we believe that the proposed amendment is appropriate for the intended purpose and is consistent with the locational characteristics of the industrial category. And on balance, we believe it can be concluded that the proposed amendment is consistent with the relevant countywide considerations contained in Section 6531 of the countywide rules.
Thank you, Jared. Do we have any representatives from the applicant, local government, City of Tarpon Springs?
Not today.
Okay, not today. Any comments from the public? Comments, questions? The applicants?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Ed Armstrong. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, located at 600 Cleveland Street, Suite 800. And I represent the applicant, not the applicant, local government. And I'm just here to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Smith.
Were there any citizens?
Yes, sir, there were.
What were their concerns?
A lot of it focused around traffic.
Okay.
And other impacts. The opponents, I'd say there are probably a half a dozen of them, and they resided to the east of the subject property. We noted that there was significant buffering by virtue of their common area, a pond, and the fact that this work is essentially done indoors, and that's why I believe the local government, Tarpon Springs, approved it, and your PAC committee looked at this and unanimously recommended approval.
Question, with the pond back there, what kind, with this being an automobile, what kind of impact will that have?
There's a wall there. There's an
There is a
8-foot wall along the property line.
Okay.
That was previously installed when the first sub-parcel of the larger 8-acre parcel was developed. That was a condition of their approval.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Seal.
Is the south and the north parcel in common ownership or different ownership?
It is in common ownership, yes.
Okay.
So presumably they'll be developed as separate sub-parcels. They're big enough to.
Just that middle parcel?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Bradbury?
We worked on the drainage for this project, so I feel that it would be best if I don't vote on this, even though we're not part of the piece that's coming forward. So I just want to make sure that's made public.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you.
I move to accept.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and I think I heard a second from Commissioner Smith. Or, sorry. Commissioner Albritton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that also passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Our next item is item 5C. It's proposed amendments to the countywide rules and the countywide plan strategies. And hello, Linda Fisher.
Thank you. Last month, we introduced proposed updates to the countywide plan in order to revise the countywide land use framework to better prepare for a future transit system. This month, as you consider recommending approval of these amendments, I'd like to talk a little bit more about why these changes are being proposed and why now. The biggest reason is that we are coordinating with Advantage Pinellas, the long-range transportation plan, which is currently being updated for 2045. And based on the work done for that plan, we are looking at a projected population growth countywide of about 93,000 residents and 59,000 jobs over roughly the next 25 years. Now, even though we're referred to as a built-out community, growth doesn't ever really stop. Historically, that growth has been absorbed through small incremental changes that occur all over the county. And the board reviews these types of land use changes every month. A few older single-family homes are knocked down and townhomes are built in their place, or an older shopping center becomes a new apartment complex. Individually, these are small changes, but from a transportation perspective, it means that all that growth is being distributed in a way that really can only be served by cars. So when we talk about increasing densities to levels that can support transit in some places, we're not talking about creating new population growth in the county. We're talking about how to accommodate the growth that's already coming. Where are people going to live, and how are they going to get around once they're here? Now, we know there's a lot of unmet demand for urban-style living, downtowns, town centers, and other dense places. And you can see that reflected in the premium real estate prices for downtown condos and apartments. We also know that there are health benefits to urban living. It's a more active environment. It's designed for walking and biking, so people do those things more. And that's especially true when it's coordinated with transit. So all of these elements point to the idea of building a better network of transit-oriented places, centers and corridors that we can link together to lay the groundwork for a viable transit system. Now, as we talked about last month, we did take steps in the countywide plan that we adopted in 2015 to create a transit-oriented network, but it was contingent on Greenlight Pinellas or something like it being approved. And since that never happened, we haven't been able to implement that part of the plan. So we are proposing to update the plan to remove that dependency on Greenlight Pinellas and instead coordinate it with the current Advantage Pinellas Transit Needs Plan. And that would provide a basis for a new land use strategy map, identifying appropriate locations for activity centers and multimodal corridors. And we actually have quite a few of these already around the county. These are typically historic downtowns and town centers and a few corridors that are built with transit-friendly urban design. But very few of them are actually built to transit-oriented densities. And those that are basically non-conforming with the plan the way it's written today. So we're proposing changes that would remove that non-conforming status and allow these places to further develop and grow in a transit-oriented way and allow potentially for some new places to be created. Now, just a reminder that when we talk about transit-oriented development, we're talking both about the density that's allowed and the type of urban design that's required. These places need to be walkable and bikeable, they need to provide parks and public spaces, and they need to actively encourage transit use. So there's a lot of detailed planning work that goes into them. And in order to achieve this type of development, we're proposing revised density standards for the activity center and multimodal corridor land use categories. And I went through these pretty thoroughly last month, so I won't belabor them today. But on your screen are the proposed activity center standards. These are designed to serve as future transit hubs. Each category has 4 different subcategories, with the highest densities being appropriate for the locations with the highest planned transit in the Advantage Pinellas Needs Plan. Now, none of these densities will apply automatically, even in existing activity centers. A local government would still have to go through the countywide public hearing process and get approval to increase their densities to these standards. These are the proposed multimodal corridor standards. These are connecting areas between those future transit hubs. And again, we went over these in some detail last month. Now, following that meeting, we were continuing to receive input from our local government partners. And one of the things we heard was that they felt that the corridor standards we presented last month were a little too low. The densities didn't justify the amount of extra work that's needed to use this category. So we're proposing to increase some of these standards a little bit higher than what you saw last month. But their densities are still significantly below the activity centers. So those category standards are the most significant of the proposed changes. But just to briefly recap a few of the other items we talked about. We're proposing to simplify the process of making minor amendments within established activity centers and multimodal corridors, and that's in response to feedback that we've heard from the board over the last few years. Currently, even a change to just a single parcel within one of these areas, even if it decreases density, triggers a whole new round of countywide public hearings. So we're proposing to allow some types of minor amendments to be approved at the local level, consistent with what we do for other land use categories today. We're also proposing to create a new category called Planned Redevelopment District, and that would be a sort of middle ground between these very transit-oriented categories we've been talking about and the regular suburban categories that are used everywhere else. And that's, again, in response to requests we've had from a few different local governments. We're proposing to enable locally created density bonuses for missing middle housing and vertical mixed use. And those would be similar to the local affordable housing bonus that the plan enables today. And then lastly, we've included a number of just housekeeping type amendments. Staff frequently receives requests for interpretations for parts of the countywide plan that maybe could be a little more clearly written or just need updating. And the board receives reports of those interpretations every year. So we've included proposed amendments to clarify those. And that is the proposed countywide plan amendment package. If the board concurs with these changes, then the next step would be to approve Resolution 19-3, transmitting the amendments to the Countywide Planning Authority with a recommendation of approval and asking them to schedule 2 additional public hearings. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I'm Chair, if I could just add a little bit. Linda, thank you. That was a great presentation. To address Commissioner Long's earlier point, this is very much tied to the conversations that we're having with the county and with PSTA about potential investment corridors. And we wanted to make sure that the land use is right to support any investment in housing and transportation in priority corridors in Pinellas County. So while the terminology is still getting worked out, this is very consistent with the conversations we're having countywide about looking at a coordinated housing, transit, and land use redevelopment strategy in Pinellas County. And I think that's really important that in your role as not only the Pinellas Planning Council for these land use changes, as the MPO, you have the ability to condition transportation funding decisions on getting the land use right. And so these are amendments that are enabling the local government to apply to achieve these standards or achieve these density thresholds. But it's a local government action that initiates this. If the local governments initiate these kinds of actions and show that they're supportive of these kinds of densities and intensities, then you have the opportunity, and potentially a significant opportunity, to determine which corridors should get the transit investment based on those local government actions. So this is what it means, linking land use and transportation decision-making. And I really want to commend Linda and her team and the land use team at Ford Pinellas for doing groundbreaking work that I don't believe is being done at this scale countywide anywhere else in the state of Florida. So I think this is a good thing. Again, this is setting the table for local governments to make their own decisions and for that day when funding may become available to significantly improve our local transit service and regional transit service. We're ready.
It's very exciting. Commissioner Bujalski?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So thank you for all the hard work. Great. Glad we're taking all of these steps and combining transit and land use planning and all of those things. And I know it's kind of a double-edged thing that it's doing. I noticed that in the presentation it talks about, you know, our forecasted population increase. And given that this, along with a number of other factors, will be considered for future transit choices, things that, you know, various agencies will fund, is there any reason here to consider future tourist increases as well?
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I've learned in the last several years being here during an economic boom is that the growth of the surrounding counties is driving a lot of that tourism activity. We were in Indian Rocks Beach the other day, and you know, people were talking about how much busier it's gotten and how much of a challenge it is to park and get to Indian Rocks Beach, which is maybe the last beach community that doesn't charge for parking. And that's a straight shot from Hillsborough County, and all those new residents in Hillsborough County still want to go to the beach, and we're their beach. Dunedin, Honeymoon Island is still their destination. So I think we're seeing it statewide with the statewide growth. Pinellas County may not be growing all that much compared to its surrounding counties, but the growth in the region is affecting our county, and we need to be prepared for that. We also don't want people to drive far distances to qualify for housing. You know, we don't want Pasco County to always be the affordable housing place in our region. And so these land use changes are enabling the development community, private development, potentially to help us build the demand for housing that we have here in this county, which will shorten trips and create more opportunities for people to use transit, to walk, to bicycle. So it's a combination of things, but absolutely we're considering tourism in this.
So I guess I just want to share with the board and with you, I hope that as we do these types of things in the future, that we're working with our tourism arm to say, these are the projection of increased tourism as well. Because I think some, not all, I think we have to consider that. I think we have a very unique environment here that while most people look at the population and the work piece, and yes, that has to be a part of it, I think the enormous increases in tourism that we have, our infrastructure can't support it, and it has to be a consideration amongst a number of things. So whenever we're looking at population, I would hope that we would also subsequently have a proposed increase in tourism number as well.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
point. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thanks. I was going to call on you next, Commissioner Long.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your very in-depth presentation, and I deeply appreciate all the hard work that has gone on from your department and from our county folks as well as PSTA. My concern, if I say this right, is there have been several iterations of this as it has evolved, and as you've been talking and having your meetings every couple weeks for the last several months. And it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that when I first saw the initial plans, there were 9 corridors that had been identified that needed work. And those 9 corridors that were spread out over the entire county have now come down to 3. Is that correct?
We still have the 9 corridors. 3 have been identified as what we would consider priority corridors based on the indicators of connecting lower income households to job training and job opportunities.
That seems to me to leave out a large portion of our county as well as many of our municipalities. And I do think this is a partnership, and that surely we are having or going to have an opportunity for input from our municipal partners. And I know that in the beginning, Commissioner Seal, as our chair, sent a letter to all of the municipalities, correct, Commissioner, asking for their transportation needs?
Correct.
How many of those municipalities responded?
I don't know the exact number, but 6 or 7 so far.
Out of 24?
We just got a letter from St. Pete yesterday, so they're coming in, and we're going to follow up with all of those local governments. It may be more than 6 or 7, but it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Well, I think that's disturbingly light considering the enormity of the issue. And I don't know what the real answer is, but I think that another effort of communicating with our municipal partners is certainly in order.
That is definitely anticipated for the summer and fall. Rest assured, as we develop the Advantage Pinellas plan and this dialogue between the county and PSTA, we certainly want to do that. I also want to just mention that while we've identified 3 priority investment corridors for now for discussion purposes, one of those corridors that we identified is the State Road 580 corridor from Dunedin out to Oldsmar and through that corridor. And the Department of Transportation has funded a corridor study for that one that is beginning fiscal year 20. So sometime after July 1, we expect that to be underway, and we'll be talking with the department to scope that. So it's not like we're not paying attention to the other corridors. We're only looking at 3. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in all of our corridors in Pinellas County. Some are going to be more transit ready today than others, and some may be more ready in 10 years.
And with all due respect, I hear you. I also am very familiar with the snail pace that government works at. And we have already been doing studies and talking and communicating for 50 years here. To Commissioner Mayor Boljowski's comments, I mean, every day it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. At some point, don't we just have to really start showing our citizens that we are doing something about it? I know my tone is a little snarky, but Commissioner Welch,
Didn't
help
have
me
enough
out.
in my mouth. It's not snarky at all. It's well stated.
Madam Chairwoman, if in regards to the letter that Commissioner Seal sent out, if you all will forward it to me, I will put it on our Mayor's Council agenda on July 24th and bring the issue up and urge all the mayors to urge their folks to respond.
Thank you.
I had Mayor Kennedy, and then
Linda, thank you for the presentation. Concerning the land use the new designation that you're speaking about, and I know that Whit said that you're still working on it, but can you, being involved with mixed use, I was just remembering when you were talking about it that when Whit first came on, we did a presentation, three of us, concerning the mixed use and having a mixed use property of my own. Also, Darden just was involved in an article that had to do with mixed use too, and in redoing our community, we are continuing the mixed use effort. In that new designation, are you going to be talking a lot about mixed use? How does that going to fit in? You mentioned it, but I was thinking maybe if you could give us just a little bit more information on that.
Sure. We're proposing a new bonus. We are enabling local governments to adopt a bonus that would allow them for categories that allow both residential and non-residential use. Currently, if you want to do mixed use, you have to proportionately share the density and intensity entitlement. So if you have a mixed use that's half residential and half non-residential, you can only use half the density and half the intensity. This would allow the full density and the full intensity to be used. And that's something that we've heard as a request from a number of local governments over the past few years, that it's just very difficult to do mixed use without more density and intensity entitlement. So that's one way. We're also creating a planned redevelopment district category, which would allow higher densities and intensities that would facilitate mixed use as well.
Thank you very much.
Which one?
You.
Great work, and I share Commissioner Long's intense sense of urgency on this.
Thank you.
But it really is us almost reaching the promised land, because years ago when we talked about combining PPC and MPO, it was so you had transportation and land use planning together, and that's what we're doing. So just an incredible job on this.
Thank you.
One question I had was on missing middle, and I'm searching and seeing some definitions, but I don't see anything tied to a specific AMI. So is it simply the types of housing as we have in the definition? Or is
Missing
it-
middle housing is separate from affordable housing. Missing middle
Okay.
refers to more of an urban form.
Okay.
And those buildings are multifamily buildings that are of a small scale that can fit within single-family neighborhoods.
Tiny
So,
homes, that kind of thing.
Could be, or
even like duplexes, I think.
garden,
Yeah, there's-
small garden apartment buildings with 4 to 8 units. Have a lot of them in St. Petersburg, as a matter of fact. And we do have already an existing affordable housing bonus that local governments can take advantage of, and that would have more of the affordable workforce housing criteria. But this is strictly, missing middle is strictly urban form.
Okay, the form. You identify the Finding the Missing Middle study from October 17. Is that on our website, or can you email that to us?
Yes, it is. We'll make sure that
Okay.
you get that link.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Seal?
Yes, I wanted to go back to, I think it's slide 8, the land use strategy map. I'm trying to figure out, I can't find gray, which is the except for down on Central Avenue.
And that's the only
Is
location.
that the only one?
Right, correct.
Okay. And then, all right, that answers that. The next is on the proposed density changes to the activity centers.
Yes.
What's the maximum density we have now in our urban centers and major centers?
The City of St. Pete has 8.0 floor area ratio in their downtown core, and they use that for density and intensity.
Are there 200 units an acre, though?
There's actually a building in downtown St. Pete that's 400 units an
400?
acre. It's the Bayfront Tower building. Most of the other buildings in downtown St. Pete work out to about 150 or 175
That's what I thought, we were
units
around
per acre.
150.
But that's not the adopted standard. The city uses floor area ratio to govern density and intensity.
And then how about the major center? Give me an example of where that is.
That would probably be somewhere below downtown Clearwater.
Where?
Downtown Clearwater, currently, although we've proposed to reclassify it as an urban center because of the FAR, their density is probably closer to a major center level of density.
I think it's interesting, and I agree that our millennials and future generations do want to live in urban and not be driving and everything else like that. But I always go back to something I think the former MPO director Brian Smith told me, that if our population could have been possibly double, if not triple, and that's what I'm trying to remember, had we put in the density as originally might have been allowed in Pinellas County. And so I only, related to transportation, bring that as a cautionary concern, because if we do go forward with these densities, then we better make sure that we have some alternative transportation, because it's going to, we don't have the road capacity. We've done pretty much everything we can do and are finishing what we need to do, and we will need something different in order to accomplish this. So,
That's right.
Finally, the last question I had is on slide 12. And could you give me a little bit more information about the new plan redevelopment district category, and also where you think that you would be applying that? Is that infill, or is it broad, like activity centers?
The reason that we are proposing creating that category is because right now, the activity center and multimodal corridor categories are doing all the heavy lifting for anything that's not a suburban development style in the county. So we have activity centers. I think our largest one is 1,600 acres, and that's too large to be a truly walkable, compact, transit-oriented development area. And talking with our local governments, we determined that we really needed something that was somewhere in between those very transit-oriented categories and the suburban categories. So Plan Redevelopment District would be, the proposed standards are 45 units an acre and 2.0 FAR, so it's somewhat in the middle. And we anticipate that some local governments could use them as transitional areas in between activity centers and surrounding suburban development, or they could just use them in standalone areas. One of the local governments that we talked to was unincorporated Pinellas County in their Lowman community redevelopment area. This was partly designed to help accommodate some of the things that were being planned for that area.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Bradbury, and then we'll get to you, Commissioner Long.
Thank you. Looking at the very first slide where we're seeing the population growth potential versus the job growth. And we keep talking about transportation for the millennials and for, the people that are living in the downtown corridors. I feel, and I've stated this before, we need to be able to have transportation for them to get to jobs. And I don't see us working towards that. When you were showing the corridors, Almerton Road, which is part of the Gateway area, is an improved road that we need to, have more first mile, last mile for PSTA, more PSTA kind of corridors going in and out of those industrial areas. So that, if a person wants a job, that they're not getting off of a bus on Almerton and then having to bike or walk several miles inward to those industrial areas. We can't expect that many people to come here if we don't have the job growth and we don't have the transportation availability to those jobs where we can grow the jobs so that it's equal. We don't want to create a non-working, a non-job desert because we bringing in so many houses and stacking people one on top of each other without giving them the opportunity to get to a job.
We agree very strongly with that, and that was a major reason for coordinating land use with the Advantage Pinellas Transit Needs Plan, because this is based on the idea of getting population to jobs. These Priority corridors were selected based on population density, job density, and workforce development resources, as well as affordable housing, workforce housing. So the corridors are designed to get the maximum number of people to the maximum number of jobs. And we feel very strongly that we need to coordinate land use with that, so we agree.
But we've already got the land use in place. We already have vacant industrial land in place. And we're not addressing the transportation in those areas.
We're working toward that with this plan.
Well, I see us intensifying land use. I don't see us intensifying industrial uses, or, to maybe bring them closer to the main corridors and then having the homes maybe behind it. Maybe we need to flip-flop our
I think
land uses.
You're touching on a good point, and we've actually had some preliminary conversations with county economic development, and there may be a potential land use case that we'll see. We hope it comes out the way it could, where we have maybe a mixed-use industrial development on a greenfield site today that might be a model for how we could redevelop in the future. So we'll wait and see if that process moves forward as anticipated, but that would be in the city of St. Petersburg. But there may be other opportunities. The problem with a lot of our industrial today is that it was built a long time ago, and it's inherently not walkable. And so you've got to have a walkable environment for transit to be effective. And that's why you have so many of our manufacturing and other workers who cannot rely on transit because it's hard for transit to serve those areas. The Bryan Dairy Corridor is a good example of that. And if they are riding transit, then they're walking or they're riding their bikes a good long distance, or they're using an Uber. Direct Connect is a strategy that PSTA has that can provide some of those connections. So I think you're onto something that it's just going to take longer for those industrial uses to cycle because they have a long life. But where we can make those changes, we are looking to make those changes. And if there's an opportunity like in the Gateway area for a mixed-use industrial development pattern, then we're eager to explore those options. You'll hear that presentation a little bit later for the Gateway Master Plan, where we're talking about a concept called Eco-Industrial District, and that would enable that kind of development pattern to emerge. We just haven't seen much of it yet in Pinellas County.
Maybe, and this just came to me, PSTA having, how they do the buses, the vans for share riding, to have a van that circulates during 3 shifts in the industrial areas, bringing them back out to the main roads.
Could be.
And with our intensity, we've got kids, we are active, adults, we need green space to continue. And I kind of feel like sometimes, they build out a parcel and put money into a fund for green space in the future, but if each parcel keeps doing that, where's the green space going to be? That we may need to make the landowners responsible for their own green space. There was a beautiful picture of a downtown area with a beautiful sculpture, but, is that adequate? Is that actually part of that parcel, or did they put in funds for somebody else to deal with the green space instead of themselves dealing with it?
I believe that was the city park, City of Clearwater.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Commissioner Long?
Yes, and if you can stay on slide 10 for just, you're right there, because I'm more visual when I try to figure out what we're talking about here. So when you say neighborhood center, community center, major center, urban center, to Commissioner Seal's point that she made, can you go through that just quickly one more time and give me an example of where you see those that exist now?
Okay, these are all examples that exist in Pinellas County today. Actually, 3 of these are in St. Petersburg. The neighborhood center building is 60 units an acre. That is in the, I believe that's the Edge District. The community center building is downtown, and the major center is also. But those are actually reflective of the densities that are written on the screen.
Well, I recognize a few of them, and I think instead of just identifying them the way you are, it'd be nice if you actually put where they are, and then we could all be on the same page mentally. Thank you.
I will do that for the next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sofer.
Again, I echo everyone else in thanking you for the presentation. These are really lovely developments, but I don't quite see where this fits into the snapshot of affordable housing. And I think that, you know, I'm not seeing us solving that problem of people driving from Pasco, like was mentioned, to live in those areas. When these projects are developed, is there a threshold of saying that, I mean, you can't hold a property owner at a level to what he's going to rent or sell these properties for, correct?
That's not something that we would address in the countywide plan. We have very broad parameters, density, intensity, permitted uses, and a few other items. That would be the purview of the local government to set those thresholds.
But I can add to that a little bit what I said a little bit about earlier about the MPO responsibility of conditioning funds for transportation projects. We certainly haven't had this policy discussion yet, and we will. But if we are recommending transit projects to go forward in any one of these corridors that we've identified, I think we would first want to ask the local governments, what is your affordable housing strategy that you've adopted? Are you setting aside a certain percentage of units for affordability based on some threshold of 60% or 80% of median household income? Show us how that's codified in your plan. Show us how your mixed use redevelopment is codified in your land development code. Show us how you've embraced complete streets and you're connecting into these corridors where we expect transit service to be of a higher level than it is today. And if we see those things, then I would be very comfortable recommending to the Board of County Commissioners or to the Florida Department of Transportation that we invest in these corridors. If I don't see those things, it's going to be hard for me to make that recommendation because affordable housing is such a big issue. So it's not tied up in the countywide plan necessarily, but we've enabled it. And so it's really going to be up to us to kind of hold the local government's feet to the fire when it comes to transportation funding decisions. And that's about the best we can do at this level. Local governments have a lot more tools in their toolbox than we do as a countywide planning agency.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Bajowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments on just some of the things that I've heard from folks. I know Mayor Bradbury was talking about the arts and parks and that type of thing, and I agree with you. We want to make sure that we have a balance of all of that. It just made me think, I know the city of Dunedin, which would then subsequently be the overriding municipality, doesn't mean we go to these high levels of intensity if it doesn't work for us. We do have a land dedication ordinance and a public art ordinance. So anybody that develops has to have a certain amount of green space or donate land towards green space, and has to provide public art or pay into a public art fund. So I think there are some unique ways municipalities can do that. I know that we as a board can't force that issue, but we can certainly let them know that there are some unique ways to do that. So I just wanted to say that. And then on the affordable housing issue, this might be just a Dunedin question, but I'll go ahead and take the time to ask it. So as you were explaining how that will fit in so for instance, we're getting ready to do the corridor study, or FDOT is getting ready to do the corridor study on 580. And we just actually did a affordable housing needs assessment in our city. And so we already had policies, we're developing updated policies for our affordable housing. So when you look at a transit corridor, any of the ones that have been identified, would it be important then to identify that corridor in our plan and do special things for that corridor for affordable housing? Would that be something that would help as a partner in all of this.
That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we also have someone in the audience who would like to speak now. Mr. Kilborn, if you'd like to come on up, nice to see you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Derek Kilborn, manager for the City of St. Petersburg's Urban Planning and Historic Preservation Division. So I did just want to come today to offer our support for the discussion that you're having. I kept changing my notes as you were talking because you
Me too.
were all bringing up really good points. You know, this is something that our staff and public have been collaborating on at the local level is how do we provide more attainable housing options for our community, not only because that's important to our residents, but it's also very important for our business and workforce recruitment and retainment efforts. And so we've been working with a lot of different folks, not only in our community, but also organizations and agencies that can help us identify those needs, including the Chamber of Commerce, for example, who partnered with the city in generating what's called the Grow Smarter study and strategy, and housing was identified as a critical piece for our success in that area. Taking that information, then we started working and communicating with the Ford Pinellas staff, who have been very helpful in helping us get to this point where we're having a detailed discussion about density and why density is important. As one part of a much broader discussion, we recognize there are other issues that affect what we're talking about, but density and using density to increase supply is really important. And it's something that should be thoughtfully considered in this process. Board Member Welch had indicated, he referred to the promised land. We have noticed in this time that there has been a culture shift on the question of density. Last month in Linda Fisher's presentation, she used an excellent slide that compared 3 different building types that were each measuring 40 units per acre. And I wish she had that slide in her presentation today so that you could see it again, because there's historically been a lot of focus on density, but in our opinion, what is important is the character of the buildings themselves is what our public is reacting to, not so much the density question itself. And so I thought that that slide last month was really important to the discussion because it shows how we can get high density at a residential character level. So in our community, we have been talking a lot about missing middle. We've been going out doing a lot of different public presentations on that question. And in preparation for that, we went out and photo selected many missing middle examples from within our community to demonstrate different points. But one of the points we were showing was this question of density. And one of the things we found were that one, there are many missing middle examples in the city's premium neighborhoods, North Shore and Kenwood, which are very desirable places to locate. In those neighborhoods, these missing middle housing typologies are sprinkled throughout the roadways. And as a representative for the city's Historic Preservation Office, I'm also very sensitive to character. So many of these buildings, which calculate to anywhere between 25 and 55 units per acre in the heart of a single-family neighborhood that is currently regulated to only 7.5 to 15 units per acre, shows that higher densities aren't necessarily a concern when the character of the building typologies are executed correctly. So in those cases, I also know that if somebody ever came in and proposed to demolish those high-density buildings in those neighborhoods, there would be a separate community argument about why we should retain them because they're so important to the character of that particular neighborhood and how those residents identify the place that they live in. There was a question about how these proposals fit our efforts towards affordability or attainability. Board Member Softner, I know you mentioned this. Supply is only one part of a much more complex issue, but increasing those densities in a way that allow the local municipalities to be more flexible will help us get more of those units in there. Supply is important, but also just giving people more options or choices within the neighborhood that they live, allow them to adapt, at different stages in their lifetime, so that perhaps they're starting out as a college student in that accessory dwelling unit in the back of the property, and then in their middle ages, they're moving into the primary residence up front, and they're renting that accessory dwelling unit in the back to offset their mortgage costs. And then as they get older, maybe they're transitioning back into that accessory dwelling unit or some other housing option. But having those higher densities will allow us to redevelop in ways that give those residents choices and can stay in the place that they're familiar with, instead of forcing radical change and expenses that are really unnecessary if we plan correctly. Finally, the other part that we think is so important to what you're considering is not only the increases in density, but also the synchronization of land use and transportation policy. I know we all know that. We've been talking about it for years now. But it's really important, and the changes that are proposed to you just further solidify that. We have an active application right now in St. Petersburg. We are working on doing this. Part of that proposal is to reduce parking requirements with proximity to premium transit routes. And so this is helping us incentivize the construction of more multifamily units in proximity to premium transit routes, where current and long-term transportation investments and needs will help to bridge some of the challenges that we're having, provide those people choices, give them transportation to their jobs, which hopefully we can retain because we have the right types of housing in place. With that said, I can answer any questions, but I did just want to come to you today and say that the City of St. Petersburg's Planning Department is thankful for the work that Forward Pinellas has done on this. It will really help us be more flexible and respond to the requests and needs in our community, and we encourage you to support what's in front of you and recommend approval to the CPA. Thank you.
Great. That was fantastic. Thank you, Derek. That was really just so beautifully said, and I know how hard you and your team have been working with us on all these issues, and I know, Linda Fisher, you and your team have put a lot of work into this as well. Few things are more important than our community's discussion on increasing density, encouraging mixed use, encouraging affordable communities, livable, walkable communities, and this is the details. This is the document that helps enable our local governments to head in that direction. So thank you. Good board discussion. I'll also note that our Planning Advisory Commission voted 12-0 in support of this. And if I may, hear a motion to support.
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Did you get that? Councilmember Gabbard moved to support with, I believe, Commissioner Long seconding. Blah. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Terrific. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so that closes our public hearing. Thank you again, everyone. We'll move on to our next part of the agenda. We have a number of updates and presentations, beginning with our PSTA activities report from Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's exciting to be able to report to you that our board approved an agreement with the City of St. Petersburg to accept a contribution from the City of St. Pete of $4 million towards our local share of the Central Avenue BRT project. So that is a very big, huge step in terms of moving the dime at the federal level. And we are anticipating that we will have our final approval from the feds on our BRT project later this fall. We are also very grateful to the city for their support of the project and understand of the need for improved service in our critical regional corridor. On the west end of the project, we continue to discuss options for the end-of-the-line stop and are very hopeful that we will come to an agreement about the use of the Pinellas County Beach access across from the Dolphin Village on Gulf Boulevard as an agreeable turnaround for the BRT system. PSTA and the county staff, thank you very much, Raheem, are working together to make a functional and safe stop at this location. As we get closer to the 60% design completion, we're going to be holding open public house meetings along the corridor and further engage the public on the project. These are tentatively scheduled for sometime in late August and early September, so stay tuned. And last night, PSTA held a public hearing for the proposed October service changes. The most significant change will be to the North County connector routes serving Dunedin, Palm Harbor, Oldsmar, and Safety Harbor. All of the connector routes will become fixed route service and no longer accommodate off-route flex service. The main benefit of this change will be to improve on-time performance of the routes, which has been a chief concern of riders in the area. We'll also make route alignment adjustments based on the rider flex requests that have been received over the past few years. As we close in on the draft budget for 2020, PSTA continues to demonstrate its efficiency, but also the general lack of investment in public transportation in our county. And just so you all are aware, we worked really, really hard on that budget to free up the very much needed additional dollars and took it out of our reserve fund to fund the safety mechanisms now in all of the buses to protect our drivers. We are very much looking forward to the County Commission funding workshop to be held on July 18th to discuss all unfunded transportation needs throughout our county, and we're hopeful that our municipalities will be able to participate as well, yes. And we expect a productive conversation about the entire transportation system and how we might move forward to fund those needs in the future. That's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Long about PSTA? Commissioner Long, would you please continue on with our T-BARDA update?
I'll be happy to, and may I just revert back to my former report for one quick moment, because I forgot a very critical part, which is very important to our PSTA folks. Okay, Cassandra. Our leadership PSTA class has chosen Feeding Tampa Bay as this year's community impact project, and I thought that was very important to share with all of you. Florida is 4th in the nation for family hunger. Can you believe that? And 60% of the population in West Central Florida is eligible for food stamps. Many at-risk students won't eat at all between lunch on Friday and breakfast on Monday morning. Terribly disheartening when you think about that. These are hard realities for the 1 in 6 in our region who live with daily hunger. So the Leadership PSTA class will be hosting a food bank at PSTA headquarters on July 30th, and hope our riders and others in the community will be able to take advantage of this opportunity to go without hunger. We're hoping we can find a way to make this a recurring event to consistently help our community with both access to food in addition to food itself. And our next PSTA board meeting is on July 31st at 9 a.m., PSTA headquarters. Okay, and now I'll do the T-BARDA report. Thank you very much. Okay, it was a short but important board meeting that we had on Friday, June 21st at the HART headquarters over in Hillsborough. And the Federal Transit Administration National Transit Database Reporting Procedure and Document Retention Policy was adopted for T-BARDA to be able to use going into the future for our van pool program. This policy will apply to all financial, programmatic, statistical, and other supporting records and documentation used for reporting operational and financial data to the Federal Trade Commission, so Transit Administration. And our FY 2000 audit report was accepted and prepared by Clifton Larson Allen. We passed it unanimously, and this is going to allow T-Barter to better evaluate funding going forward. I'm very happy to report that we have a balanced budget with real dollars set aside for our needs for T-Barter, which has been a very big uphill battle to accomplish. I'm very, very proud of that. And we had a proposal from FKQ to increase our budget on our new website by $2,150. And the reason is because we have a large Spanish population, and we want that website to be able to be translated into the Spanish languages as well. So that's what that additional money is going to cover, and that was approved. The next board meeting for T-Barter is July 26th at 10 a.m. at PSTA, so it won't be hard to get to. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Any questions from the board? No? Okay, well, we're moving forward, finally.
Very exciting. Thank you for all your work on both of
Welcome,
those
thank you.
committees. Our next item is the Advantage Pinellas update. We'll hear from Rodney Chapman.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Rodney Chapman, Division Manager for Pinellas. What I'll spend the next few minutes doing here is to give you an update of where we are with developing the new active transportation plan for Pinellas County. And as we've talked about before, this is a parallel effort with our adoption of the long-range transportation plan. And I'll speak a little bit in subsequent slides about how those two planning efforts are linked. So first of all, I want to talk about some noteworthy accomplishments because when I go around the state to talk about walking and biking in Pinellas County, our peers are very envious of what we've done. And so, for example, late last year, Pinellas County was designated as one of 19 bronze-level bicycle-friendly counties through the League of American Bicyclists. Late last year as well, Dunedin was designated as the first trail town in Florida by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And several of our key trail projects received SunTrail funding through that first allocation of state funds. Also, St. Petersburg's Bicycle-Friendly Business Program is a national leader. It's currently number 5 in the nation. We have been a key partner with Bike Walk Tampa Bay to focus on regional solutions to improve safety for walking and biking. Our trails and sidewalks continue to grow around the county, and we've also been successful in implementing a Complete Streets program to provide funding to our local government partners for those key projects. Now, while those are all noteworthy accomplishments, there's still more work to be done. And in our profession, there is a growing recognition of the nexus between some of these planning decisions and health outcomes, for example. So what you see here on the chart to the left is the percent of middle and high school students in Pinellas County that are obese. And it was concerning to us that since 2012, we're trending in the wrong direction, where in 2012 we were far below the statewide average. But based on the latest available data, which is 2016, we are catching up, and that is not a good thing. Also, in 2016, heart disease was the #1 cause of death in Pinellas County, and we are also, about 6% of the adults in Pinellas County have a coronary heart disease, and those health outcomes are directly related to access to physical activity, as well as poor eating habits and other factors. Also, I think we're all aware, and it's been well documented, that we have a higher pedestrian fatality rate than the statewide average. And also, as we go through the redesignation process through the League of American Bicyclists in about 4 years, we'd like to consider shooting for that silver level designation. But in order for us to do that, we'll have to get more people out commuting by bicycle. We'd also have to make improvements in our bicycle crash and fatality rates. So why develop that new plan in addition to those reasons? A couple other things to consider. The current plan was adopted in 2013, and a lot of things have changed since then. There has been additional guidance that is more focused on designing for all ages and abilities, and that there have been successful improvements in implementing these policies around the country. There are other methodologies, specifically things like level of traffic stress, that have been used to plan better bicycle and pedestrian networks. And we want to use some of those types of methodologies to plan for a better bike and pedestrian network. Because the ultimate goal with this current plan is to come out of this process with about 10 to 12 strategic planning projects that can be built over the next 10 years or so. And this is the first time that our agency has taken this more direct approach to not only the planning considerations, but also the funding through our multimodal priority list. So in reaching out to our stakeholders, be it our advisory committees or the general public, we first started with a vision. So we asked them through a few different planning exercises, what are their thoughts on walking and biking in Pinellas County? And what you see here is a word cloud of those results. The bigger the word, the more often it was mentioned by the stakeholders. And so what came through loud and clear to us was that people wanted to have a biking and walking network that was safe, that was connected, and that was accessible. There are other ancillary thoughts, you see on the periphery, but this was a clear guidance to us in terms of what that vision needs to be for Pinellas County. We also were fortunate to be able to work with the County GIS Bureau to develop an interactive mapping tool that would help us reach a broader cross-section of the public. And so you see the actual outputs of that mapping tool in the center bottom. We got a lot of good feedback in terms of where people currently walk or bike, where they would like to walk or bike, and what barriers they see to having a more comfortable experience. It was a very successful effort. We were actually fortunate to have ABC Action News run a couple of TV spots on this effort, and it drove a lot of traffic to the mapping tool. Earlier I mentioned level of traffic stress, and I just want to talk a little bit more about that because we feel that it's very key to our work. The idea was developed, or the approach was developed by Northeastern University, and the concept is there's about 50 to 60% of people that would like to bicycle, but they're in that green box to the in the upper part of the slide. They're kind of considered interested and concerned, and they're concerned because sometimes when they're out on the bicycle, there may be too many travel lanes, the speed of traffic may be too high, too many vehicles, not enough designated facilities, and so on. So in order to build out a more robust network and take advantage of that 50 to 60%, your road network should be designed and planned to make those people more comfortable getting on their bicycle. And the guidance has these facilities in your road network broken down into 4 categories. So it's level of traffic stress 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you see those at the bottom. And so what we did was we took a look at Pinellas County's road network, applying that same methodology, and you see the draft outputs to that on the map to the right. And unfortunately, there's a lot of red there that you see. And so our goal is to identify those appropriate corridors where the demand is high and the interest and the feasibility is there for us to build connected networks that will make people that are more interested and concerned more likely to use their bicycle. And as I mentioned before, the federal guidance is moving in that direction. There's a more stronger emphasis on separated facilities that wasn't there in the past. And the chart to the right shows, based on vehicular speeds as well as vehicles per day, whether you put in a shared bike lane or boulevard, or a buffered bike lane, or a separated bike lane or shared use path, given those factors. And as an agency like ours, as we work with our partners, we have to review and recognize those local planning priorities. So things that have been done or underway in Lealman, Clearwater, other parts of the county are things that we are taking in consideration as we develop the plan. On the demand side, we tried to make it as data-driven as possible. So what you see here are 2 outputs. On the left are for pedestrian demand, and on the right are for bicycle demand. And we came up with these outputs using an index of several factors, and you see those components in the center. The earlier discussion and dialogue about density is related to this because that was one of the things that we looked at in terms of concentrations of population and jobs, those proximities to those key walking and biking destinations. Equity was a key component in terms of minority, low-income, zero-car households, and other considerations. We also gave consideration to transit stops on core routes so that walking and biking could be part of that first mile, last mile solution. And then we looked at those shorter trips as well. And so you'll see with the outputs where those concentrations are, both for walking and for biking, those will be used for us to better to move to the next step to plan those connected corridors. So again, that was a summary of where we are right now with the Bike Ped Master Plan. We will be developing a infrastructure reference matrix, so it'll be sort of a guide to local governments, depending on roadway conditions and characteristics, the type of bicycle and walking infrastructure that should be planned for. We also will have that prioritize list of projects, that 10 to 12 that I mentioned earlier, and then we'll actually have concept summaries for each of those 10 to 12 projects that will be somewhat detailed, including cost estimates, which will then feed into the long-range plan. Are there any questions?
And we have Chelsea will be coming up in just a second for a broader update on the plan, so just keep that in mind. Any questions? Commissioner Bajowski?
It's not really a question, it's a request. So in looking at this and the next step that we're going to be talking about, I know that in the past, the Fort Pinellas MPO has looked at trail crossings, consistency countywide. And I've read the final reports, and I think some of those, there was a time where various municipalities couldn't agree on having consistency. I think what we've learned, at least in Dunedin, and I'm not saying we're the same as every other municipality, but is that consistency in these crossings are really important, not only for the person in a vehicle, but especially for the person as a pedestrian and as a bicycler. And now you add all the increase in tourism who are moving around and not used to what do I do at the crossing of the trail, even if there's signage or if they are a bicycler or walker. So I think included in this, I think it would be beneficial to go back and review that consistency of where we have a very large portion of pedestrian bicycles meeting automobiles and the consistency issue. I don't say I know what the answer is, but having worked, as an example, having worked on the School Safety Transportation Board, we worked with the county to, and the MPO and the county to make school zones, the 15-mile-an-hour school zones, both consistent in speed limit and markings. And a lot of communities didn't want to do it, but they did it, and we now have consistency, and it's a much safer environment for people going, our children. And I think the same theory holds clear with our trail crossings. So I'd like to see that included in this. Certainly would love to hear my colleagues' feedback.
Thank you. Commissioner Sofer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rodney, for your presentation. I'm just curious, in your study, what happened in 2012 to have this increase of obesity and, the decrease in activity? I mean, because there's a considerable drop there in our downward economy started back in 2007, so it doesn't play in the role. And I want to make sure we don't get into this trap again. If you were able to pinpoint exactly what happened during that period of time.
Not exactly. We have a few theories, but we'll investigate a little further, talk to our counterparts at the Florida Department of Health. They're the ones that capture these data points, and so we can investigate a little further to figure out what the root cause of that was.
Well, on the positive side, I noticed that, and I assume that's because this network planning process was put into effect in 2013, that we're on the right track of going back
Yes.
And bringing that up.
Yes, and just a personal bit of information. I think having access to infrastructure is key, because if you make it more convenient for people to walk and bike, you're removing those barriers, so they're more likely to do it. We're having this conversation in my house, honestly, about with my kids, and it's not only the nutrition part, but it's the activity part. And so I think we're doing our part as planners to help make the right choice the easy choice, because in the past it wasn't always the case.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Welch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll put my dove, chop it down after that. That's not the reason. Great presentation, Rodney. I wanted to ask you on the map with the network, the level of traffic stress.
Yes.
So there's some gray streets down in St. Pete that aren't mapped yet. Is this ongoing?
It's ongoing. That's
Okay.
why it's a draft, and so
Okay.
we're working with St. Pete to sort of designate or identify those corridors.
You could probably
just
fill
want-
most of those in yourself, couldn't you?
What's that now?
You could fill most of those in yourself,
I
right?
could, and I do consider myself a strong and fearless
Good for you.
category. You kind of have to
I'm
be.
not.
You kind of have to be, don't you?
Yeah, me
Whit?
neither.
Whit is obviously.
Yes.
But one thing
Yeah,
I
no
wanted to
kidding.
add on that is, along with the presence of bike lanes and then the width of bike lanes, that consistency issue that Mayor Buljowski mentioned, the condition of the bike lanes really is important, because there are a lot that are
Right.
bike lanes in name only.
Yes.
And folks, whether it's uneven pavement or it forces the bikers to go out of the lane unexpectedly.
Absolutely.
And a lot of folks avoid that as well. So condition, if we could work that in there as well.
Right, and I think this is also related to Commissioner Long's point about this overall transportation funding discussion, because I think in talking to Public Works, that is a barrier. It's not enough funding to maintain what you have.
Right. Great job.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just would like to say, some of those bike lanes are just really, really narrow. And it's frightening to think that you could have several bikers. I mean, when they have those bike,
Bike
a
clubs.
gajillion bikes and they're all right. That's scary stuff, especially out on the beach.
If I could just add real quick, we had a radio show at WMNF on sustainable living last week about complete streets and bicycling and walking and infrastructure. And one thing I pointed out is that years ago, we had a policy that all state roads would add a bike lane for any resurfacing or any highway capacity project. I remember living in the city of Orlando where Mayor Hood, Glenda Hood, adopted a policy of 100 miles of bike lanes before her term ended. And those are laudable policies, and not a knock on Mayor Hood, but what it ended up is, both with state highways and with the city of Orlando, is a lot of substandard bike lanes shoehorned in wherever they could find 3 feet to fit a bike lane in. And that's not necessarily a problem on a 30-mile-an-hour street, but it's a real problem on a 45-mile-an-hour street. And I challenge anyone on the board or watching on TV or in the audience to go ride the frontage roads of US 19, where we have striped bike lanes that are 3 feet wide. I was out there the Saturday trying to ride them.
Don't say that publicly, people will start doing it.
It's just not comfortable. So the department has moved away from that one-size-fits-all approach, and that's the beauty of this Complete Streets, is that it sets context for these decisions, and the Florida Design Manual has now changed. So we have an approach now that if you've got a speed over 45 miles an hour, you probably need a 7-foot bike lane. You probably need some kind of a buffer or even a separated type of treatment. The challenge we're always going to have is that requires a trade-off. Either we're acquiring right-of-way, which nobody really wants to do because that's expensive, or we're narrowing our travel lanes from 12 feet to 11 to 10, which is a challenge sometimes too. So all this is great, and I love the thought about protected bike lanes, but I really get frustrated sometimes about the either-or proposition that we're presented with. Is you get a lot of people out there saying nothing but protected bike lanes, and we just can't do that. So sometimes we're going to need a bike lane that's 4 feet wide next to 40-mile-an-hour traffic, and it's not ideal and it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot safer than no bike lane. And frankly, it's safer than riding on the sidewalk, especially if you're riding against traffic on the sidewalk. So we're going to do our best, and we're going to work with our partners to find the optimum solution, but sometimes the optimum solution is not achievable. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is always a balancing act just with everything we do in transportation. Thank you, Rodney. And now I'd like to have Chelsea come up and give you a little bit of where we're headed next on the Advantage Plan, and she'll keep that fairly brief, as she always does.
Always. Afternoon. So just to update you all or remind you, this is a 4-phase process. We started this long-range plan update about 2 years ago. We started with data development. We evaluated some different scenarios last year through the It's Time Tampa Bay process. We've already identified all the revenues that we can reasonably expect will be available for transportation investments between now and 2045. And now we're going to start prioritizing our investments, and then we'll move into the policy definition as we go into the fall. Just another reminder, these are the advantages that we're including in the plan. We're saying that these advantages can either be further enhanced or we already have them in Pinellas County by implementation of the Advantage Pinellas Plan. Attractive and unique destinations, resilient communities, safe and healthy communities, strong economic opportunity, mobility and accessibility for everyone, and a collaborative vision for the future. And when you get the draft plan later this year, you're going to see that it's very highly organized around these 6 advantages. So this is another reminder. We've done a comprehensive needs assessment for all modes of transportation. Rodney covered the bicycle and pedestrian needs assessment. I believe Sarah Caper came to you a couple months ago with the transit needs assessment, and these are showing you the roadway improvements. These are the complete streets improvements that we are going to be including in the plan. These are contextually sensitive or context sensitive. These are not going to look the same on all these roads will not have the same treatments. A lot of these are bringing the roadways up to urban standards, adding sidewalks, some kind of bicycle treatments, and maybe some turn lanes, but no through lanes are planned to be added to these roadways. And this shows those roadways where we do plan to add through lanes and additional capacity going into the future. As Commissioner Seal stated earlier, there aren't that many left. Our roadway network is highly developed throughout Pinellas County, but there are still some areas where we do want to add additional capacity, primarily along US 19, Starkey Road in the Largo area, and also along Gandy Boulevard and some additional improvements in the Gateway area. Oh, and also touching on that, we do include major bridge projects as well. There are 161 bridges in Pinellas County just on the national highway system alone. So we do not include all bridges, but the major ones we do. So Beckett, Dunedin Causeway, and the San Martin Bridge will also be included in the long-range plan. So now we have to start talking about our prioritization. As I said, we've already identified those revenues. We're coming up with cost estimates now for all of the transportation projects. For the long-range plan, we do have to show 5-year increments. So we need to make sure that the plan is cost feasible, and we have to identify the projects that we believe we can reasonably believe that we can fund between now and 2045. If you've been around this board for a while, you may remember that just 4 years ago, we only prioritized major state roadways for funding on our priority list. We now have a multimodal priority list. So we want to make sure that the projects we include in the plan include all modes of transportation, and that we're using the revenues, state and federal revenues, for all modes. We're not just aligning these with roadway projects. We want to make sure that we're funding the bicycle pedestrian projects that are coming out of the Active Transportation Plan. We want to make sure that we're investing in our transit services, as well as our intelligent transportation systems. We've had some conversations with the county recently. The ITS system in Pinellas County is almost completely built. However, now we need staff to maintain it. We also know there's additional technologies coming out every single day. So we want to make sure that we're reserving some of our funding in the long-range plan for additional future technology, just so that we can make sure that we're covered and we're funding the operations of our system. So what we're going to be doing over the next couple months, when we come back to you in September, we're going to have a lot for you to react to. We're going to be looking at how to split our revenues amongst those modes. And the staff recommendation for that is to set targets. We do already have performance measures and targets in the Transportation Improvement Program for a variety of things. We'd like to establish a few more. By setting these targets, we want to make sure that the projects that we're selecting help us achieve progress towards those targets. So the 3 major areas we're looking at are traffic flow, safety and health, and enhancing transit service. So the greater ability of our project to help us meet the targets for these, the higher relative priority that we'll have it in the long-range plan. So some of the targets and measures that we're looking at, one of which is travel time to work. In Pinellas County, our travel time to work is actually lower than the state of Florida and the U.S. Overall, but we can probably make that better. So we'll be looking at setting a target that's lower than the 2017 number, something that will be achievable as our other performance targets are, and that'll help us prioritize projects to that end. We've also talked about a mode share target. These are for commute trips only. So over 79% of residents in Pinellas County drove alone to work. That's lower than the state of Florida on average, but higher than the U.S. as a whole. So we're looking at, let's set a target for non-single occupant vehicle commute trips. Currently, we're about just under 21% of our commute trips are not people who are driving alone. And you can see from the breakdown there, that's split between carpool, transit, walking, biking. And actually, Pinellas County has a higher percentage of residents who work from home than the state of Florida or the U.S. on average. So we'll be looking at setting a higher target for that. We haven't quite determined what that threshold is going to be, but we would like to increase our non-single occupant vehicle trips. We have our safety targets. The board has already established targets for those, and this board takes action and reviews those on an annual basis, usually I believe in January. So we'll be looking at that. That is decreasing fatal vehicle crashes and decreasing serious injury crashes. We're also looking at setting a target for % of greenhouse gas emissions per capita. We're having a little bit of a hard time trying to find the data. The mode share and the commute time is readily available from the census. Greenhouse gas emissions might be a little bit trickier, but we're going to be working on that in the next few weeks. And we'll also be looking to set some targets for equity. Our environmental justice areas are those that have a higher percentage than average of minority and low-income populations. So we want to make sure that the projects that we're identifying really target these areas and enhance mobility and accessibility, and also targets that address access to jobs. And that's going to be linking that housing and transportation and workforce development that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. And then finally, we had talked about enhancing our transit service. So we're going to be looking at some targets where we look at population or jobs within either a quarter or a half a mile of those premium transit corridors. We're going to be looking at today versus if we do those targeted investments along those key corridors, what that looks like into the future. So we've done a ton of outreach over the last couple of years. Last year with our It's Time survey, we had our Statistically Valid. We've been out in the community. We have another survey. It was actually emailed to you about an hour ago. Commissioner Gow, I believe, with Dunedin already took it, and he said it was very easy, very simple. So this is going to be our last public outreach push that we'll be doing for the long-range plan. So when this comes back to you in September, we're going to coalesce all the outreach that we've done, bring it all together, and be able to have projects that align with what the public is looking for. So we encourage you to take our survey. This is on Facebook. We've been doing Facebook ads for the last week. Just this morning, we started targeted ads to zip codes in Pinellas County. This will be up through the end of the month. So we're asking that you share this with your networks and help us get the word out.
I just got an email from you guys while I've been sitting here.
So coming soon, we're going to be having a continued presence in our communities. We did target 2 of our lower income and minority communities, one up in Tarpon Springs. The Lellman community has also been targeted for additional outreach. We'll be in the city of Dunedin this weekend, and we'll be doing another focus group in late September to really get some additional feedback on the draft cost feasible plan. And then the plan will be coming to you in November for adoption. I'll take any questions.
As we bring this in for a landing in November, what are the kinds of things that we can help you with as board members?
For right now, I'd say the outreach. We really want to get this last push. We want as much feedback as we can to help us come up with that relative priority of all of the projects. That's going to be our biggest thing for the next couple of months.
Share the survey with your networks, yes. On social media, with your newsletters, things like that. That would be very helpful to us. I was at a great housing forum that Councilmember Gabbard sponsored, put on yesterday, and there were a lot of different voices in the room, and we need to hear those different voices in this process. And I went up to one of the gentlemen who spoke, who was a cook at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. He wasn't real happy, but he had some really good comments. Mm-hmm. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, housing is one piece of it, but transportation is another piece of it. And we're working on both those things. And so I encouraged him to be engaged. And, we need your help in reaching folks who are sometimes hard to reach. And invite us in and let us know when there are meetings that are being held. I'm meeting with the Clearwater Young Professionals tonight. So that's a start. But we want to see people we don't normally see at these meetings.
Amen.
Yeah. And if you could go back to slide 9 for just a second, I want to point something out. Pete, if you could bring that presentation up. There was a report that just got distributed about all the MPOs in Florida on transit accessibility. Maybe it's slide 10, the next one. Yeah, that one. Pinellas County ranks 3rd in the state after Miami-Dade and barely Gainesville on the number of jobs accessible by transit within a 30-minute transit trip. And I think that's really telling. I mean, way ahead of Orlando, way ahead of Hillsborough, way ahead of Jacksonville. And that's because of our geography. And when we talk about Advantage Pinellas, we need to recognize that one of our advantages is that we're a fairly compact county and we have jobs spread throughout the county. That's a challenge and it's an advantage. We don't have high density job locations that make light rail or commuter rail the easy choice, but we have a ton of jobs that are accessible by transit. We need to work on that. We need to work on that better, but I was frankly astounded that we were that much better than Palm Beach and Orlando and large urban counties and Hillsborough County in terms of how people can get to jobs by transit. So we're underfunded in transit, but we've got the bones to make it work. And I just want to kind of reiterate that.
And that comes with a lot of hard work, just so you know.
Yeah. Mayor Kennedy.
Chelsea, have you went to SBC and did your little, set up your tent with all the balls and all of that thing? Have you done that?
Not at SPC. We have had conversations with SPC and we've tried to get access to their students. We've shared surveys with their student body, but we haven't done the table at that location yet.
Are you still looking for venues?
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
we're going to be doing this. All the outreach will continue probably through October.
Okay.
So any ideas that anyone has, upcoming events, please let us know and we'll
I'll
send
have them
someone
call
out.
you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation is the Gateway Area Master Plan. Is Garland here? Hi.
She is.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Thank you for
Good afternoon.
having me. And I was told I have a short period of time because you guys have a full agenda, so I'm going to try to be brief but give you some of the highlights of the Gateway Master Plan. And so this presentation is going to include some of the concepts, strategies, and recommendations for the master plan. And Ford Pinellas and their partners, including some of you who are here on the commission today, authorized this study, recognizing that there is a need for a comprehensive vision and committed partnerships and smart investments for the region to enable its competitive advantage, as well as to make it a place where people want to continue to live and work, and that can improve the quality of life for those communities. And so the Gateway Master Plan starts off with a vision of what that future looks like for the area. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's approximately 30 square miles, and it includes from the Tampa Bay east all the way west to Starkey Road, 62nd Avenue as a southern boundary, and include portions of the city of Largo, Pinellas Park, and St. Pete. And the Gateway includes a high number of employers. It includes a number of residential neighborhoods, some of them pretty suburban style, single family, as well as some mobile home communities, as well as some more townhome style residential neighborhoods as well. And some key places that people would recognize, like the St. Pete International Airport. Carillon is within the Gateway as well. And so the vision is to create an action-oriented strategy that creates a series of distinctive places within the Gateway. It's too large to be one single place, but that there could be a number of special places that you can start to attract investment and link that investment to the transit and other larger investments that the county and partners have made that go really closely with the other presentations that were given today in terms of the kinds of strategies that people want to see happen in the Gateway. The process is about 18 months, and so we're towards the end of the process. And through the public and stakeholder engagement strategy, we developed a vision, and then we also developed a framework that allows us to develop specific strategies to allow that vision to happen. And that framework diagram that you're seeing now talks about the multimodal transit, transportation and accessibility framework. And so how do we make those safe and connected networks between jobs and housing, as well as between housing and amenities and other things within the gateway. Land use and innovative uses of land to support that robust economy that already exists there to some degree in terms of having such a wide array of high-wage employers within the gateway, but then knowing that there's limited opportunities to invite new employers to be part of that. How do you reuse land that's already there to a higher use so that you can have places where that happens? And in recognizing that the gateway is in a really vulnerable location, that a triple bottom line resiliency approach has to be a key part of it. And that includes environmental sustainability, dealing with equity and community livability and quality of life for the folks who are already here, and as well as economic development, that all those things have to be cohesively linked and maintained. And then also as infrastructure is being developed, both transportation infrastructure with the Gateway Express happening, as well as other forms of infrastructure, making sure that we're leveraging that to the greatest degree possible. And that helps us to decide where it makes the most sense to put new investments and new density and amenities versus places where access and connections will not work as well. And then this diagram that you're seeing here, the framework diagram, is a land use diagram that starts to show the different types of uses that we're defining as part of the study that will show you a little bit further how those land uses are developed. So the purple area right in the middle is what we're calling an eco-industrial park. And that idea is that's the place where a lot of the manufacturing uses already exist. And through land consolidation and smart uses of land, there's an opportunity to create eco-industrial or industrial mixed-use districts where you can have jobs, you can have transportation, you can have amenities for the people who work in those industries, and as well as things like a circulator that can take them from one part of the area to another, for whether it's for lunch or to run an errand or to get on a different type of transit to be able to get home or to work. The darker orangey colors are areas where we're calling mixed-use employment centers, are places where there's some level of residential as well as office and other employment, and that can be densified further. So one example of that, for example, would be Carillon. Another one would be the Bay Vista Office Park that has a lot of surface parking. And by reorganizing that, and we'll show you some concepts of how we're thinking that those ideas can be explored further. And a key part of this, of course, is that multimodal transportation framework, recognizing some of those investments that are currently being made, like the Gateway Express, as well as the reconstruction along the Howard Franklin and I-275, and where are the places where potentially traffic might be moved further off some of those streets, and that you can really leverage transit along what we're calling one of the key corridors, for example, where we're seeing for as a proposed transit spine is along East Bay Drive to Roosevelt and rides right along where Carillon is through the Gateway from that west to that eastern and down to St. Pete as one strategy. Another one is leveraging the opportunity for US 19 to do those wider regional connections as well as local connections. And then those smaller magenta lines are showing that within the Gateway itself, there's a need to further increase the access within the road network that's there right now, that it's very limited opportunities to get through the Gateway as a whole. And so being able to connect roads and that could serve for transit, like circulators and other things. And then also thinking about where that multimodal framework comes in terms of bicycles and pedestrians with the Duke Energy Trail access along the Cross Bayou Canal. And then looking at this multimodal transportation strategy in the short term as well as a long term opportunity. So short term could be things like circulators that have worked really well in other job centers to connect people. And then long term could be whether it's bus rapid transit or other forms of transit that could connect those places. And then going down into a deeper level, that same area that we looked at one of the earlier maps, when we're looking at that purple area that we're calling the eco-industrial area, is that focus on making sure that the Gateway can continue to maintain its economic advantage and be a place where people want to invest and could be continue to be a job center. That area right around 126 between the Cross Bayou Canal and 49th, we did a whole series of analysis that we're not presenting as part of this presentation, but that analysis showed that within that area, there's fewer landowners and larger parcels. So we chose that as an opportunity to demonstrate how, through parcel consolidation, that idea of that eco-industrial framework could work. And this is the area that I'm referring to. This is what it looks like right now with that's the Cross Bayou Canal on the most western portion. And then you can see 49th running along the eastern portion. And we focused on that area because there's some degraded land uses. It's not as intensely developed as it potentially could be. And so we thought that was an example to show how this advanced manufacturing industrial campus could look like if you were to implement that strategy. And then this is a vision for how do you do that, looking at giving flexibility to the parcel sizes so that you can attract some of those. We've heard consistently from the county economic development folks that if there's larger manufacturing uses that would want to locate here, there's nowhere for them to be, so that you could attract those kinds of uses, but you can also attract some other co-located smaller manufacturing facilities, have some kind of center where you can have transit, circulators, a short-term, other types of transit in the future as a long-term, connecting it to the trails. And then also the idea that knowing that all of these parcels have to address their stormwater management, consolidating where the stormwater management happens so that it becomes a feature of the site. And that's on this view right here. So this is a view of looking in. And you can see that there's the new industrial manufacturing buildings. There's the transit station where you can have ride share, circulator, and other amenities available there, making it an environment where people could bike and could walk through that district. And even things like bike share, which may not work in the Gateway as a whole, but you can see bike share working at a place like this as a first and last mile solution, that if you got off at a circulator here, could you get on a bike share throughout this district? And that you could also imagine these companies, which is already happening within the Gateway, are sharing some resources and amenities. And then the previous one, which I went through, was showing, as we've been working on this project, we've been working closely with a number of county agencies and other partners with the plans that they're working on and making sure that they're well coordinated. And the county is working to acquire right-of-way along the Cross Bayou Canal to make the canal work as that function for managing stormwater better. And along with that, there's an opportunity to include a multi-use trail along the Cross Bayou Canal. And in some locations, not across the entire canal, there would be places where people can access and be able to dock a boat and a small watercraft into the canal itself. So that the idea that it's showing that it could be a multi-function, multi-use space that serves that in more stormwater infrastructure function, but it also can be an amenity to the Gateway and start helping to provide that identity. And that's some of the things that we consistently heard beyond traffic and safety, which is probably the number one priority concern we heard from both the employers we spoke to, as well as residents and stakeholders, and that you've consistently heard, was also that the Gateway has no sense of place. There's nothing to attract someone to want to be here. So the more that we start thinking about placemaking and branding elements and signage and potentially environmental art and other things that can be part of that district to be able to do that. And then beyond that eco-industrial center, we also looked at the typology for what we're calling mixed-use centers that could be places that have some level of employment as well as residential and other uses. This view is looking at a portion of the Carillon site, which what you can see is it's pretty spread out in terms of not having a really walkable grid or place that you can get to. But within that, the future Echelon City Center is looking at having that level of density and walkability there. And so this diagram that we're showing right now is showing here is if the Echelon city center project and some of the existing Carillon site. And if you were able to strategically infill and redevelop some of those vacant, those parking lots, those surface parking lots, and build parking structures that can be shared amongst some of the uses, that you can start adding density to a place where a lot of density, a lot of energy and amenities already exist, and in maximizing that use. And then the potential for integrating, we are working concurrently with the intermodal team that is doing their Gateway Intermodal study, whether an intermodal center happens here at Roosevelt or somewhere else within the site, but how do you link that intermodal center so that you're having, instead of all these people driving to the place, they can take transit, get out of there, or even if they're driving, they can park at the periphery in a garage that's linked to that intermodal center, and from there be able to go to their other destinations. And that black line that you're seeing in the diagram is showing that idea of a circulator as being an early term action, which some of the employers we spoke to when we were doing the stakeholder interviews thought that it's something that they can definitely see happening, and that they would be very supportive of having that kind of use. And then this is an illustrative view of Carillon, with the idea that you have these existing office buildings, but that you can start to improve the environment. You can implement transit. You could also implement renewable energy and some green infrastructure as new developments happening along the way, so that you're making the entire environment more resilient over the long run. And then these are some of the branding and placemaking elements that we started to think about that can be woven throughout these very specific places. And in this site study here is for the Airport Business Park. And the idea for this is the St. Pete Clearwater International Airport is doing their airport master plan on the airport side. So we didn't focus on that side since their master plan is towards the end of it. We looked at the adjacent properties that are both publicly and privately owned on the other side of the airport. And knowing that the Gateway Express is coming through here, really leveraging that site that now has greater access and greater visibility, and going from those surface parking lots to something that could be more intensely developed with more business parks. Our economic study that was part of this overall Gateway Master Plan showed that the Gateway can attract some investment for new hotels, new residential, new office and commercial buildings. And so part of our work was to show, if you can attract that, where could it be that you can put some of those new uses, and how would it work, and be able to leverage the existing amenities and be designed in a way that supports the best placemaking goals and urban strategies for placemaking and development, and work within the context of what's already there. And as you can see, one of the challenges that we've been working with is that this isn't a development where you're starting from scratch. You're infilling into an environment that already exists, and so you have to be very cognizant of the environment that's there. With a lot, the high school is there, a lot of city and municipal offices, and how does that work, and can you support the urban environment to make it more walkable, safe, and connected. And then the last one that we'll be walking through is the ICOT site, which includes a high number of very good technology employers, as well as some health employers. But there's a lot of surface parking, and around that is a lot of varied types of residential neighborhoods. And then so could you start developing, and I said ICOT, but I meant Bay Vista. Could you start developing this Bay Vista office park into something that's more of a mixed-use, walkable urban environment, where you can start creating some public spaces, where right at the center, we're seeing that this could potentially be an opportunity for residential infill with ground floor commercial and other uses. The pink buildings are existing buildings that exist within that environment. And because of the way that the site was developed over time, it's really hard to make a perfect grid out of it. But you can, by adding additional connections, you can still start breaking up some of those super blocks and making it a place that's walkable, and pushing parking to the rear of the building so that it doesn't have that impact on the urban environment. And we see these places as a place that you could continue to invest in, because some of the companies that are already there, like Tech Data, they're doing quite well. They have a high number of employees there. But right now, most of their employees and a lot of the employers we interviewed, they eat in a cafeteria. There's nothing else to attract them to being there for those 8 or 10 hours that they're at the workplace. So we imagine that these mixed-use employment centers would have a benefit both for the adjacent communities that now have amenities that they can get to, as well as for the people who are working in those environments. And in terms of where we are in the process, we're wrapping up. We've done presented these concepts and strategies to the public, to stakeholders, as well as the municipal partners, and gotten tons of feedback about things that we need to refine as we finalize the master plan. And we're in the process of developing that actual master plan document that'll have that level of detail, that'll also be able to coherently make sure that what we're proposing works well within the policies that the other municipalities are doing, so that we're not proposing a vision, but then they're concurrently making policy changes that then doesn't support the vision that they want to see happen here. So we're working hand in hand to make sure that those two things come together. And part of that, also the next step is also prioritizing what are some of those early actions of where funding and priorities should be for things like Penny for Pinellas. So some of the things that we've heard about in terms of where that priority could be is for land consolidation, because that's the only way change is going to happen within the gateway in the near term, is to be able to consolidate some of those parcels to be able to do some of those larger different types of development. The other challenge that we have that we might want to consider how we advocate for funds for that is making sure that the transit is being closely linked and having those first and last mile amenities within the gateway, so that as development happens, you're having a place where people can connect to that transit. And then other things are, we know economically it isn't always working for private developers to be able to knock down their properties right now and redevelop them to a higher density. So there would have to be some kind of bonus or incentive to be able to push those private landowners to be able to make those kinds of changes. So that's where we are in the process. And I know that was quick, so I'll take some questions.
Commissioner Seal.
I think this is rather exciting.
Mhm.
I really like a lot of the concepts of the green roofs and solar and everything else. The Eco Industrial Park, that's brilliant. So to be able to fundamentally change these places so they are more live, work, and play, placemaking, and so on, and business attractors. I mean, this is really excellent. So the only one I wanted to ask you about was on page 16, and that was the Airport Business Park. I believe the areas that you outlined pretty much are owned by the county, by the airport. And so you may want to entertain, if you haven't already, a conversation with the St. Petersburg Clearwater Airport.
We have a number of times, yeah.
You
So,
have
so
already.
they're clear on the strategies we're proposing. In general, they're pretty
Because
supportive
that's
of it.
already land that's consolidated.
Yeah,
that
some
already
of, there is
has
some
great
private
opportunity.
land ownership within that.
Yeah.
That we're showing, like that tip where that, the car dealership place is, that's privately owned.
Okay.
And then the other challenge they have is that there's a lot of leases.
Right.
And so the strategy of how do you, over time, as those leases come up, not release them, but put them into that overall strategy to redevelop that business park.
Okay, then on the other side of the road is what we call the old Turtle Club site.
Yeah.
Did you take a look at that?
Do you mean the Airco site?
No, it's on, so looking at slide 16, if you see where the airport is, the same here on the east side, if you go north of there along the Bayside Bridge, there's additional land.
We did
that
not look at that.
You might want to talk about all of the airport land,
I remember Boatyard Village.
including.
I
Airport
do
Village,
too.
which
I
you may already
hated
have
when
talked
that went away. I loved it.
Went to the Turtle Club back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I've been around that long. But
Days
that
of
was-
the Turtle Club.
I mean, I have, and Commissioner Welch can really remember this, but I have pounded on trying to get the old Turtle Club redeveloped for some time now. You know, we really worked on it, and then the recession hit. It's timely to be looking at that land. I think the county was entertaining some possible leases, but I'm not sure where we are on some of that. So look at all the airport land, easiest place to redevelop. So, thank you. Really exciting. Good work.
Mayor Bradbury.
Thank you. Some of the areas that you were talking about, and you just barely ticked on it, some of those older industrial areas where you were talking about where the property would have to be accumulated for redevelopment. I do mayor visits once a month. One of the ones that we recently talked to wants to expand. And I think infrastructure is going to be very important because the property next to him is where he wants to expand to instead of moving. There is an electrical pole in between the two properties, which means he literally can't marry the two buildings together, as well as.
Is it a high voltage line or just a pole?
Oh, no, it's got. It's a.
Are they the towers?
It is the electricity coming in, going to either one of the buildings. So that's an added expense that a business would have to go through, let alone probably water, sewer, and different things like that where, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, those properties were all parceled out. So each one of them has, electric, whether it's above ground, below ground, going to them, the water and, the potable water and the wastewater and everything, going to each one of those individual ones kind of in a scattered area. If we could have maybe some incentive later down the road through the county, through the city, through Forward Pinellas for those businesses to revitalize their infrastructure going to those, or the landowners, so that maybe some more of those can be consolidated and revitalized.
That's a great point. And some of the examples that we're looking at in Texas where they're building these types of eco-industrial parks, and they have an advantage because they have green land that they're starting off. So they're starting from scratch, but they are building shared infrastructure in terms of stormwater, in terms of energy, so that way you don't have that issue. And here, since it already exists, I think the challenge would be how do you start off from some kind of shared system that different property owners can pay into, and that can also potentially have some public support to be able to leverage that. But I think that's a great point and something that needs to be part of the strategy to enable it to happen.
A shared cost to update the infrastructure.
Especially since the county wants to make sure that those businesses can stay and expand in Pinellas County as opposed to going elsewhere. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was an incredible presentation.
Thank you, Garland.
So we still have a good bit of our agenda to get through, so let's keep moving on. The next item is our annual budget and millage rate for fiscal year 20. Hello again, Rodney.
Hi. Rodney Chapman, Division Manager. I'll just spend a few brief minutes to talk about the annual budget and the millage rate for fiscal year 20. This is a follow-up conversation to a few briefings I've given the board over the last few months. And so, just as a reminder that the Fort Pinellas Agency is funded in two ways. On the chart to the right, it's the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and those operations are funded through a combination of state and federal grants. And you juxtapose that with the Pinellas Planning Council operations, which is on the chart to the left in green. And the PPC operations are funded through a combination of property tax revenues, intergovernmental revenue from the MPO, a small amount of interest, and then we also receive local government revenues for technical assistance that we provide on a case-by-case basis. So as a snapshot for the fiscal year 20 budget, it is about $3.6 million. It is actually a 2.6% decrease over last fiscal year. The big change in operating expenses for fiscal year 20 is development of a Vision Zero action plan. So there's about $200,000 that we've included in the budget to cover that cost, and that has related to an increase in our operating expenses as compared to last fiscal year. Our property tax revenue is projected to increase by a little over 7%. And I think as I share with you all the time when I come and talk about the budget, we are an efficient agency, and we have maintained the current millage rate of 0.0150 since 2016-17, which is about 9% of our millage cap. This pie chart shows you in a little bit more detail about the anticipated expenses for our agency. 60% of our expenses are in what the county calls personal services, which is really your salaries and benefits. Another 26% is in operating costs. We do provide some monies to the constitutional officers, and then you see we have about 13% in reserves. On the resources side, about a quarter, less than a quarter of our revenues were carryover funds. We have about 33% of revenues coming from those property taxes I mentioned earlier. We are projecting about $15,000 for revenue from local governments for providing that technical assistance. We get a little bit of money, less than 1% from interest, a small interest-bearing account, and then we get about 42% of our revenues from the MPO for those salary and benefit costs. So the major changes from fiscal year 19, again, as I mentioned before, Vision Zero. Secondly, we'll continue the planning and placemaking grant as a pilot program for the third year at the level of $100,000. A bit of good news for us, this year it seems like our charges for intergovernmental services have stabilized. In the 3 years that I've been managing the budget, that number has been all over the place, quite honestly. But this year we think we have a more stable number, and that again is a charge we incur for things like county attorney, communications, technology, OMB, and so on. And then we also are increasing our professional development budget that we provide to our staff, because we are finding that we're going out more often to state and national conferences to present, as well as our staff seems eager to get a higher level of training, and we want to support that. So this is a timeline of future steps. On September 10th, the tentative budget will be posted to the Pinellas County website. On the 12th, there'll be the first public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners, where they'll adopt the tentative fiscal year 20 millage rate and budgets. And then on the 24th will be the final adoption, and then we'll begin in the new fiscal year on October 1st. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Rodney? Commissioner Sofer.
Rodney, what do you attribute the intergovernmental services stability to?
The short answer is, with the merger, we found out that the Planning Council and the MPO were being charged different rates for intergovernmental services. And so in some cases, the PPC wasn't being charged at all for certain things. And so the last few years, we've sort of untangled all of that. And now the costs have stabilized because there's a better understanding of what we should be paying for and what we shouldn't be paying for.
So more like a dual charge instead of now?
In some instances, yes.
And then just streamlined it to one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is time for the board to take action and to approve resolution, or to vote on resolution number 19-2, and it's adopting our budget of $3,655,650 and the corresponding millage rate of 0.0150 for our fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
And, okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. Our next item is our Forward Pinellas Legislative Committee appointments. And this is an action that we need to, as a board, do today to appoint our some existing and new faces to our legislative committee. This is so that we can be ready and be on our toes for when legislative committees start up again in the next few months. And
if you'd like
people
me to...
may self-nominate, or you may nominate someone else. I have been informed by Whit that our chairman Commissioner Dave Eggers does wish to stay on the legislative committee, so, I can't do it, but we'll hear a motion to nominate Dave to the legislative committee.
I'll
I
make
make
the
a
motion.
motion.
Second.
Should we do it one by one or do it all together?
Well, let's just do them all at once, but let's get a
Yeah.
list of names and we can maybe do it that way. If I could just say a couple things, we typically have met the day of the board meeting, typically at 11 or 11:30. I think that's probably most convenient for you all. It makes for a long day for staff, but if that's what's the best way to do it, we'll be happy to do that. The other issue is that we will take up, as needed, federal issues too. The MPO is prohibited by law from spending any of its dollars on lobbying, so we use local funds as necessary for those activities, and that's the value of having the Pinellas Planning Council with a dedicated revenue source. And while we don't have our own lobbyist, we do get a lot of good information from TBARTA and PSTA's lobbyists, and the county, we work very closely with Brian Loack. So I think it's a good partnership, and I do expect that we will see a number of legislative items again this year dealing with transportation. Potentially, last year we had a bill dealing with the Miami-Dade MPO and its structure, so that may be possible this year. And in July, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm meeting with many of our legislative delegation members. So we plan to bring to them some of the actions you've taken, like adopting our priorities, the letter we sent on the State Road 60 West Shore interchange, and finding the funding for that. So this is a combination of policy and funding advocacy.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it's important to remember that we start very early this year with committee meetings, number one. And number two, the legislature goes in January and not March.
Yes.
So we have to have our ducks in a row
That's
a lot sooner than normal.
And that's why we're doing it now rather than waiting till
I
we
get
get
it.
back
I'm
in
just
September.
making everybody aware.
Yep.
Councilmember Gabbard?
I would just make a comment about our legislative committee makeup this past year. While fantastic group, there were only 3 of us, and so that gets a little complicated when one person can't make it, or, essentially what happens is you have somebody making a motion, somebody else making a second, well, you've basically all voted. So I would just make the recommendation that if we have enough people that want to serve, that we go ahead and have the 4. I know that that's like in the policy, we can do like 3 or 4, really as many.
There's really no limit.
Yeah, but I would recommend at least 4, just for,
Who's on it now?
it was Commissioner Eggers, myself, and Mayor Kennedy.
I thought Commissioner Justice was on it.
He was previously.
When he was still on the board. Yeah.
We didn't fill that position when he rotated off.
Right.
I will make a motion that Brandy Gabbard be on the legislative committee again. She was very instrumental in the housing issue.
Brandy.
Brandy.
Oh, Brandy.
Gabbard.
I'll
Did
second
you want
that.
to continue as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a
So
motion that
essentially, we have
Kennedy
the.
continues.
Yeah,
I will make
hold
the
on with the
motion.
motion. So
Sorry.
we essentially have our existing legislative committee willing to do it again. Are there any others who would like to join? Yes, Commissioner Alberton.
Yeah, I would.
Oh,
And
okay,
Commissioner
great.
Sophie?
Yeah.
Make it 4.
Let's make it easy.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to amend your motion, Mayor Kennedy, to
Yes.
expand that?
Yes, I will amend my motion to have Commissioner Albrecht with us, myself
The existing
and
members.
Brandy Gabbard.
In addition to Chairman Eggers.
Chairman.
Well, the existing members, maybe just
Okay,
say.
the existing members.
I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? Thank you.
All right.
And thank you all to the members of the Legislative Committee and the service that you provide. It's really important. The next item has been deferred to our September meeting, so the roundabout on Palm Harbor will be back later, and then we'll move right into our Director's Spotlight report.
I'll keep this fairly brief, as I try to do every meeting. I just want to bring your attention, July 19th is we have our next Chairs Coordinating Committee meeting. It's the larger regional body that includes all of the MPOs in the West Central Florida area. They are a committee of TBARTA. A couple of things that will be on that activity will be approving the regional multi-use trails plan and the regional transportation regional incentive program priorities. That's an important funding source where there's a 50-50 match with the state. And so those are the two main activities. In addition, we are drafting a set of bylaw revisions or revisions to the interlocal agreement of the Chairs Coordinating Committee. I saw a draft version last week, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow in a staff directors meeting. That is really intended to clarify the role of the Chairs Coordinating Committee focused on multimodal transportation and clarifying that TBARTA is now a transit-focused agency. So there's some language revisions in there in terms of the committees and how they report. And significantly in those revisions is formalizing the TMA leadership group as a committee of the Chairs Coordinating Committee. Mainly because we don't want to create a whole nother set of agreements for just the TMA. And if we fold it into the Chairs Coordinating Committee, it makes for one document that provides a regional framework. For instance, how many conflict resolution mechanisms do you need if we're all part of that one? So that'll be something that would come back to the TBARTA board since it's a member of the committee, so you all will get a chance to see that. And we would bring that back to this board with any changes as well for approval. We only have had the first draft of an underline and strike through, but I just wanted to get that on your radar screen. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about it at our next one-on-one meeting. On the Spotlight update, mainly I wanted to let you know that we are continuing to work with the Indian Shores. You had the presentation last week or last month on the Gulf Boulevard project. And the mayor is continuing to have some dialogue with Richard Moss of DOT, and we're going to try and get some additional alignment there on how those projects go forward as much as we can together and saving as much of the infrastructure as possible. We have a build grant application going into the to the U.S. DOT for the Dunedin Causeway Bridge. That letter, I signed a letter of support today for that. And PSTA is submitting a grant application for the Clearwater Intermodal Center. So those are both things that directly relate to our Enhancing Beach Community Access Initiative. I'm not aware of any other build grant applications, but you never know. I do want to mention the US 19 interchange alternatives update. We had a briefing with FDOT about 2 weeks ago at headquarters before the July 4th holiday to talk about some of their initial findings. And we are going to bring that back as an agenda item because that's really significant. We're also going to be setting up a separate meeting with Pinellas County government and other stakeholders to have a one-on-one into the initial results. But essentially what the Department of Transportation did is they used one of their consultants to evaluate the feasibility of alternative interchange or alternative intersection treatments from Tampa Road north to the Alt 19 merge with US 19. And it's kind of interesting. Essentially, Tampa Road is one we think the interchange needs to go in, and there's already some money for design funded for that. That one is the one that was not feasible for innovative intersection treatments, and that's fine. But the other ones were all deemed feasible. Now what the department wants to do is do a more detailed engineering study to look at right-of-way impacts and other issues related to that. But what we saw from this planning level analysis was that the interchanges cost $80 to $100 million. The innovative intersection treatments cost $40 to $50 million. And they all have the same lifespan of a level of service standard of C being met until 2040, plus or minus. So the issue with right-of-way is that a couple of the innovative intersection concepts, the displaced left turn, for instance, would substantially restrict business access to properties adjacent to the intersection, say at Alderman, Klosterman, maybe a couple of others. And what that means is when you displace the left turn on the other side of the roadway, you're restricting all access right in, right out from those parcels. So you're effectively taking the entire parcel if you can't get in. And that's included in the $40 to $50 million right-of-way, but I don't think that's a very refined cost estimate. And that may also be unpalatable to the board. So that's at least something preliminary that was presented. So the good news is there's been a concerted effort of the department to look at these options. And at least preliminarily, it could free up money to still make improvements and do some other things on the strategic intermodal system that are needed. So I don't have a time frame for exactly when we'll have that on the agenda, but I'm looking at that maybe September or October time frame.
Could you describe where one of these innovative intersections have been used so I can look at it?
Sure. I'll get that specifically for you, but
Forward so that we could.
I'll share that with everybody. They're really prevalent in Texas and in North Carolina. And then we've all seen the proposal at Belcher and Gulf to Bay on the Michigan U-turn.
So it's kind of that idea?
Yeah, so displaced left turns and the Michigan U-turn. Jensen, you're going to have to help me. It's called an R-cut, and I can't remember what R-cut stands for. Restricted crossing U-turn. So
Restricted crossing.
U-turn. But what I'll do is I'll work with the department to get a few examples.
Okay.
And I'll share some real-world locations of where those are in effect.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Pajowski?
With those new ways of doing 19 or thoughts of doing 19, is there space enough for bus lanes or some type of premium transit?
That's something we're continuing to work with the department on. And as we get into the design phase, that's something we would like to work with them on. I have a meeting July 15th with Pasco County. And if we're going to put premium transit or express transit between Pasco and Pinellas, I want to see if Pasco is willing to be a partner on that. And if Pasco is ready to come to the table, then I don't see why we can't work with the Florida Department of Transportation to have a win-win for auto travelers and for transit users in that corridor.
Just with spending that kind of money,
Yeah.
we should be considering that. Thank you.
That's right. So I think that's all I really wanted to cover about that. On the Kennedy report for transit funding, this is Jim Kennedy, not Mayor Cookie Kennedy. But I think you all are interested in this. The Board of County Commissioners is having a workshop next week, July 18th. And we've been working very closely, as I keep saying, with PSTA and with the county. And we have a framework for the board's discussion and guidance on that. The strategy is really revolving around these investment corridors. And what I'm most excited about the conversation is that we seem to be aligned on some shared goals that are strategic for all of Pinellas County with these investment corridors in terms of moving traffic, enhancing transit service, and improving safety, and also addressing our affordable housing crisis. And the fact that the review committee, the joint review committee for the Penny for Pinellas, is also meeting at this time to look at the set-aside from Penny for economic development and housing, seems to have also a good framework with these investment corridors. So that discussion is still ongoing, but there's a lot of things that are kind of coming into potential alignment, and I'm encouraged by that, and I look forward to the discussion next week. And we alluded earlier to the letters that Commissioner Seal sent out to all the local governments. I think it's essential that we have the 24 cities at the table identifying their needs and how these corridors relate to those needs, and that'll be part of the ongoing dialogue. I think that's all I really had today. There's some information items in your packet in terms of upcoming meetings and events. We do have the traffic fatalities report. And just note, while automobile fatalities continue to go down nationwide, pedestrian and bicycle fatalities continue to rise. So that's a trend that we're not real happy with, and we need to continue working on.
We also have some committee vacancies. The CAC currently has 4 openings. One is for the Pinellas Park Mid-County area, and one for St. Petersburg, and 2 at-large vacancies. The LCB currently has 2 openings, an opening for a citizen who is a TD writer, and an opening for the public education representative. So we're ready to adjourn unless there are any comments from our board members for the good of the order. Okay, thank you very much for a great meeting, and we are adjourned.